The first thing I want to talk about is going to be hyper specific to recognition programs and awards. However, there are elements of this that can then translate to how you collect references or grant reporting templates and things like that as well. We are going to come back to that conversation, but I want people to think through bigger picture, the tools that are being put in place to power these workflows. And again, my goal is to stay relatively broad because many of you on this call today are doing a wide variety of campaigns. So, with that said, this is actually a process that had originated from a pretty how do I say this kindly? Reputable and prestigious alumni association, and it's now permeated into 3 to 500 plus membership based associations that we work with. So historically speaking, a award program was done where you would collect nominations, and these nominations themselves are what get reviewed and goes through the selection process. And in theory, it sounds great. You also start to hear stories of organizations that would do self applications or self nominations. And as soon as we start to introduce that type of concept, we're no longer comparing apples to apples. You've got nominators who are coming in out of the kindness of their own kind of goodwill, putting forth nominations about their peers. With that said, they may not have all the accurate information about them. They're volunteering their time to submit content on behalf of somebody else. They're doing it out of kindness, not necessarily out of their own skill set. If you are a self nominee, you're going to put forth just naturally a very different energy level and effort level to your application. Obviously, you're going to know far more about yourself than anybody else would. And so we start to run this really big challenge, right? Of, well, who is a self nomination versus a nominated of somebody else? And can we really compare the two together? It's also challenging because as a marketer, most of these campaigns, and this isn't just awards, it's also scholarships and grants, there's a pretty large attrition rate of people who begin these processes and these forms and never actually finish up. And so, how do we start to kind of leverage that we know for a fact it's going to occur as a way to kind of boost volume? So, one of the things that we've started to see in the last kind of 12 to 16 months has been breaking your award process into dual two-part methods. Step number one is you collect nominations, and it's very high level, very, very simple. The goal here is to boost volume. It's a marketing push. Let's get as many names as we possibly can. And then from there, the nominees themselves will enter a platform, ideally like a reviewer, and they're going to fill out their own personal application. So on the nomination side of things, we're collecting, who are you as a nominator? Who are you nominating and why? And that's it. So the idea is that we have a large number, low barrier nominations coming in, but then the nominees are the ones who are going to put forth the bulk of the effort, right? They're submitting their own deliverables, they're submitting their own essays, whatever content that you want to collect from them. So we're putting the effort on them. We're also now ensuring that the data is going to be extremely accurate. We're putting the ownership on them. And then when you go to do a review and selection process, you absolutely can still leverage the data from the nomination, but now you're comparing apples to apples because the end source will always be the nominee. You can also kind of go a hybrid approach as well, where as you enter these programs, maybe the very first question in the submission workflow is, what is this? Is this a nomination on behalf of somebody else, or are you nominating yourself for a self nomination? And if I choose I want to nominate somebody else, then obviously they fill that out. If I choose I'm a self nomination, it basically puts them into the same workflow as once that person got notified. So I know I ran through that relatively quickly. I think the best way though is to visualize like what that actually looks like. So with that said, let's jump into reviewer here. So as you can kind of see here, I've got kind of 9 different bullets that we're going to run through today. I know what you're thinking. It actually says 7. That's great. I'm going to lump a couple here together. But this is how I think you can hopefully visualize that workflow that I just discussed. So, generally speaking, we want to have some type of centralized hub for people to go to access your programming. Again, if you're doing scholarships, grants, fellowships, abstracts, that doesn't change, right? So, most of our clients will use their existing websites. And on their website, they're going to have a section that says, click here to apply. It's going to have all the content about their program. You've got strong branding and content control. So let's leverage your existing web presence. And then these microsites, which can absolutely include your branding, really serve as a middleman between your web presence and then the program portal. Again, scholarships, grants, awards, you name it. So In this use case, you can kind of see I got a couple different buttons over here. And because the goal here is if I was a self nominee, I could actually come back and fill out my own personal application. So kind of to go nice and slow here, the nominators would come in, they would basically create their quote unquote profile. That's a separate conversation. You don't have to do profile creation and review, or there's some benefits behind it, such as, data tracking, progress tracking. People can save, they can log out, they can come back later. But the general goal here is we have to lower the barrier for the nominator. If you transition to this model, the goal is two parts. One is to increase the volume as much as humanly possible. And then number two is get the most accurate data as humanly possible. So Nominator comes in, and again, this is an actual example of an organization that's working with a reviewer where the nominator will very quickly put in who they are, they're going to put in who they're nominating. And then at a very high level, they're going to put in why they're nominating them. So this could be, short answers, essays, bullet points. The robust nature of this component is going to be dependent upon how much of the nomination form you want to be included in the selection process. So if you're using it purely for marketing purposes, let's not do too deep into essays here. But if you do want to use this either for marketing, post-selected marketing, here's the great things that our nominator said, or if these essays are included in the judging process, then naturally you might want to ask for, 3 to 5 additional questions here. Overall, though, for all campaigns using reviewer awards, grants, and scholarships, try to think through essay prompts more so as like what type of questions align best with your mission and your vision, and let the applicants address and answer those types of questions. So, nominator comes in, they answer these questions, they submit, boom, they're done. Now, we also want to empower them to submit multiple nominations. So, if that is the case, this is a kind of a side tangent that you have to lower the barrier for them. So, my gut tells me that if me, Kyle, the nominator, was to submit additional nominations, my personal information is not changing, right? My name didn't change, my address didn't change. And so the system can actually carry that information over. And then from there on out, they're only going to be submitting whatever's unique about that nominee, right? So they can click add another nomination. Now, what's happening behind the scenes is either one of two workflows. Either completely automated, an email trigger could go out to the nominee saying, "Hey, you've been nominated for this year's, 2024 award program. Click here now to fill out your or accept your nomination." Alternatively, we have a lot of our clients that will take in all these nominations. There's like an internal review vetting process first. And then operationally speaking, they'll take the nominees that they want to progress forward and then bulk notify them. And then they then join the system. So what does that look like? So at this point in time, again, the nominees will come into the system. They get some type of welcome message. Again, this is completely configurable by you for all of your programs, but it's basically going to say, "Hey, look, you were nominated for this program." Obviously, I think a lot of our clients are redacting who nominated them, so it kind of keeps a very private process, and then they start to fill out the bulk of the applications. So at this point in time, this will really become completely customized based off of your desired workflows. This is a pretty common form where you're going to collect up-to-date information about the nominee. This in itself might be one of the main reasons why you want to consider this workflow. Over time, things change. Nominees' information changes, they get married, they move, they get new jobs, whatever the type of campaign is. And so it's a way for you to kind of update your own personal records with up-to-date content about them. As I progress on, you get into your short answers and your essay questions. I do want to kind of tease here just a little bit that there is a common trend that essay prompts are now being derived from things like Chat GPT or Claude or these AI tools. So we'll kind of come back to that here in just a little bit. But making it very easy for your nominees to work at their own pace. They can save, they can log out, they can come back later. We'll get into like things like file uploads. You will see here that we have a reference request component. I would say that 90% of scholarships do references, probably 60% of awards do references, and a large number of grants as well do. Most call for abstracts and speakers use references, so do fellowships. And I know what you're thinking, this looks very weird because traditionally speaking, the reference will either be submitted to you directly from the reference themselves through things like email, which is extremely problematic because now you're probably trying to figure out, what references belong to who. You have to download things, remerge it, or it comes directly from the applicant themselves. And that in itself is also problematic because traditionally speaking, references are intended to be kind of a private process. So I'm going to come back to this in the next slide because there's a great trend that we're starting to see in this space as well. The last thing that we're going to look at here is file upload. So I'll preview what a file looks like in Reviewer. But the goal here is that if you're going to be collecting things like PDFs or PowerPoints or Excel spreadsheets, it could even be videos or images, you have to be able to manage them. You cannot be downloading a bunch of deliverables, going offline, trying to open up a PowerPoint, come back into the system. We have to be able to consolidate everything. But the main thing that we're looking at here is we took a nomination, a nominee, and then as soon as this gets submitted, which I won't show you today, it's for a separate conversation, it actually merges it all together. So I have a nominee packet that comes in, and that nominee packet holds on to all the content and deliverables submitted by them, by the nominator, by references. It all gets merged together for you to manage in one centralized hub.